Hello and welcome to Skyflowers TV. I'm sitting here at Wellington Airport in New Zealand, just doing a bit of a after conference wrap up, and I just thought I'd talk about a few things that sort of happened over the weekend and just share a few sort of afterthoughts about sort of this particular event, and because the Cairns conference was actually the end of a 6-month production cycle for the Skyflowers, meaning that this was sort of like a target to release new products, and basically sort of is the end of a chapter, so to speak, and the start of a new one in what I'll be doing next. The lecture itself went over quite well. I was actually quite happy with it. Like public speaking has never been sort of like a forte of mine, because when I was growing up I lacked confidence and was quite shy around people and all that kind of thing, and the anxiety that came before the actual lecture was quite high on the scale, and so I couldn't actually see the material that I was about to present, so it actually made it quite difficult to create the content and the slideshow. So I just battled my way through the fog, so to speak, and put it all together, and it was kind of like the clouds cleared on the very day, and as I gave the lecture. The interesting thing about that lecture was the feedback that I got afterwards. People came up to me and asked me a wide variety of questions, and it was really interesting to see the different types of questions people sort of put to me. Like, obviously, everybody takes information in differently. Just excuse me while I have a bit of a tomato juice. A bit washed out, so the old tomato juice is good to sort of bring the energy back together. The questions that people asked was actually really interesting, and it gave me a sort of like a broader perspective on the talk that I gave and sort of the information that I was delivering. And so it sort of sent me off into sort of like a bit of a contemplation, I guess, to see what people are interested in, just sort of where people are at in terms of their levels of knowledge. And the interesting thing about that is that no one sort of struck me as an absolute beginner or didn't know their material or didn't know sort of their stuff. The questions they asked were actually quite deep, and some of them were quite complex. And so a number of these people will be getting back to me after the conference and emailing and things like that. So I found that really interesting, that not that I expected people to sort of ask beginner questions, but it was just really great to see that there was a depth of knowledge in the audience already, and which makes it so much easier to present and so much easier to sort of lift your game as a speaker and sort of present things at a higher level, at the best level you can sort of work at. Like when you're doing any of this kind of spiritual work, it's you want to work with people who have already got some foundation of knowledge, just so you can throw the fastball or the curveball to them, and they'll get it as you're presenting. It's always difficult when you have to actually stop and sort of educate people on the basics and then lead them up the ladder to get to where you're going, which I didn't feel I actually had to do during the lecture, and it was actually funny. There was a couple of questions sort of thrown at me during the lecture, and I had to thank Richard in the lunch following. Richard asked a couple of sort of curly questions, and I could see as I was presenting, I could see that his I can't use those sort of words. It's foul language. It's kind of like his crap meter was ringing off, and he basically wanted to call me on something, and just to make sure that I wasn't putting across sort of flaky information. And so I gave him a bit of a description during the lecture, but then I went up to him at lunchtime, thanked him for his questions, and the fact that his line of questioning is very much to do with the principles and foundations of things, is very much into a deep level of information and you know, putting out information that's actually true and useful, rather than sort of all the flaky stuff that sort of floats around from time to time. So we had a bit of a conversation, a bit of a laugh over lunch about his questions, but I really kind of appreciate his just directness with his questions. And to be honest, it didn't even throw me. You know, once upon a time it might have, but the spirit of it was very pure and very clear, and in a sense he was kind of protective of the audience, making sure I wasn't putting out you know, sort of strange concepts that could throw people off. And the only reason there was that sort of miscommunication was because I couldn't go into the subject in depth to actually explain it properly. It was, you know, to explain the concept that I was putting out there would take a good hour anyway. So and I only had an hour time slot to do the whole lecture, so I couldn't really sort of field these questions. So we did that over lunch. So thank you, Richard, for your honesty and your dedication to you know, fact-based practices. Yeah, that was pretty much the lecture itself. You know, just getting back to the conference and the overall thing about the conference. It was such a varied set of characters and personalities who were there. You know, like the presenters were excellent. Like, everyone presented something so different from each other, and the different personalities on that platform was just amazing. But what also struck me was the intelligence of the audience. You know, even though they weren't up there presenting, there was an equality, you know, that was going on. It wasn't as if the presenters were sort of like the TV stars and then there was the audience. No, it was a very equal intelligence and skill set, you know, at that conference. So I really appreciate that that part of it. You know, everybody was sort of central to the learning experience, and everybody had something particular to share and to offer. You know, even just the single questions from the audience was just amazing. You know, what sort of came out, what sort of discussion and awareness was raised about it. Yeah, I've actually written a blog post wrap up of the conference itself, just sort of like a quick sort of summary of the events and the lectures and all that kind of thing. It's on the Skyflowers website, so check that out. Undoubtedly this video will end up on that page anyway, so if you're on that page and, you know, I'm talking about it while you're reading the article, yeah, just on a more personal note for me, you know, this is my first trip out of Australia, and the first sort of overseas taking of the Skyflowers to a new audience, and to sort of broaden that horizon for the Skyflowers project. And it was an absolute positive experience. There was a number of hiccups along the way leading up to the conference. In fact, there was a whole series over the last 2 or 3 months that basically slowed my production of the new release products that I was going to present. And in the end, I had to actually leave them at home because there was going to be an issue with customs and customs in New Zealand, because they're quite strict over here, and for good reason. You know, like I don't have a problem with that. So unfortunately I couldn't bring the product out to Cairns that I wanted to show and sell off, which, you know, financially was a bit of a blow, but you know, at the end of the day, people at the conference can just email me and contact me anyway. And to be honest, I really don't like pushing product to people who are in a conference environment, simply because there's so much information they're taking on that it's hard for them to actually do a proper assessment of what you're offering. I much prefer if they just go away, have a bit of a read of the website, have a bit of a think about what they want, send me an email, and I can personalise their toolkit, or help them choose their toolkit, which is not necessarily the Skyflowers. I'll put them onto the flowers that they're particularly attuned to, whether it's other plant families or other companies. I've got no problem with doing that, because quite frankly, that's how flower therapy should be taught. Should be taught properly, and put people in touch with their remedies that they should be using. Just trying to think of a few other things. I know this is a long video, but and it's a bit of a ramble on, but I just thought I'd have a bit of a decompress for my own purposes. So if you're bored, make sure you switch off and subscribe to the channel before you switch off. But I thought I'd leave the line open and have a bit of a ramble, because I've got a bit of time before my plane sort of lands and I take off. So I might bore you a bit more with a few other little things about the Cairns conference. Just excuse me while I have my V8 life-saving juice. Here we have the beautiful planes in the background. I hope you can see that. Air New Zealand has got the best looking planes in the world, I believe. I'm flying out on Emirates, but that plane there is gorgeous to me. The paint job and the overall look of it. So anyway, I'll be waiting for my plane, so I might sign off for now, and I'll probably sit here just producing videos until my plane gets in. But for this video, it's pretty much over and out. I'll be back in Melbourne, and kind of it feels like going back. I'm a different person to the person who came over here, and I really like the person who's going back. I like the person who is coming over, but the version that's going back really does suit me as a person, me as a spirit or a soul, and also me as a entrepreneur in the world of business, and as a person in the world of natural therapies. So the person going back feels a lot more whole, a lot more solid. And so when I hit the tarmac at the other end, it'll be straight back into production for the next production cycle of the Sky Flowers. A new flower remedy is going to be released because of the Cairns conference and that particular conversation that I had that brought about that cathartic moment. The flower of intervention is going to be released. I'll write up the notes of that as soon as I get back. That'll be released probably within the next few days on the website. I'll post it online as well as an article about it. So thanks for listening, and thanks for listening to me ramble on in my sort of dreary days of after the conference. I feel really washed out and just exhausted, but exhausted in a good way, because it was not because the event was a drain or I'm tired. It was just such an amazing event. There was so much to take on board and digest. It's kind of like my spiritual body is so just full, like after eating Christmas dinner, so to speak, that I'm sort of a low energy, just slowly digesting what actually took place at Cairns, because there was so much happening on so many different levels. It just wasn't funny, and it was such a relaxed event that I came away from it just feeling so full of something. You know, I've got to take time to decompress it. So I'm having my tomato juice, which is in the nightshade family, and the nightshades are really for consolidating energy or information. They really brings things together. Drunk people who drink too much alcohol, you should get onto this. It's known around the world as a hangover cure. It's really good for nausea, but it's also for I call it the spiritual digestion of like massive concepts. It helps sort of bring it down into sort of like into the physical body, just so you can sort of process the information at a mental level. That's why I'm exhausted. It's not because the event was a drain. So anyway, 22 minutes have gone in this video. That's way too long apparently for a YouTube video, but I couldn't care less about that whole marketing thing where you do 2-minute videos. If people like my stuff, they probably want me to talk for longer anyway. If people are bored of it, they would have switched off a lot longer. So I'll pump out the videos that I want to pump out, and I couldn't care less about what the marketing experts say. So anyway, like and subscribe to the channel if you could be bothered. Leave a comment below if you want to chat, or stay tuned for other episodes of Sky Flowers TV. That's over and out.